Do you remember how you received the news of Hiroshima at the time?
How I personally received it?
Yes.
Yes, I remember very well. I was a junior counselor at a summer camp in August 1945, and we heard the news. Just was announced at maybe breakfast or something, and I had a sort of a double shock, which I recall very well, one at the news and one at the lack of reaction to it. So we heard the news. It was pretty clear what had happened. Everything just went on as normal, no reaction. I was so shocked I just couldn't stay there. I just left. I was, I guess, 15, 16. 16. I just walked off into the woods and sat there for a couple of hours, thinking about what it meant. Finally, towards dark, came back, then went on, but still no reaction. And when I got a little older and could see the general reaction, I had the same feeling. The lack of reaction was utterly shocking. Of course, in part, it was because of censorship. The information was not allowed out. We know now that a great deal of information was concealed from the Japanese and from the world, but enough was known to realize, especially after Nagasaki, that this was the world was entering into some stage of new horror, maybe disaster. I recall a few years later, maybe around 1950 or so, my wife and I, one evening, were looking for want to see a movie. So we looked at the movie pages of the local newspaper, and there was, we noticed a movie called Hiroshima, which struck me as odd. I didn't think there were any movies, and we looked, and it was, which made it stranger, is that it was being shown in the, what they call the red light district, the district where they show pornographic movies in downtown Boston. So we thought, let's see what it is. So we went down to the red light district, bars, what you'd expect, and went in to see the movie. Turned out to be a documentary. To this day, I have never figured out what it was, because there weren't supposed to be any documentaries. But it was a very poorly made, but plainly authentic, just visual report, photography of the actual events. People running to the river with their skin falling off, and all these hideous things we know about. And the audience was laughing. It was being shown as a pornographic movie. I didn't know how to come to terms with it. I mean, that was one kind of reaction. The other kind, say, in Harvard Faculty Club, wasn't laughing. It was just dismissal. Or concern that, well, by then, 1950, there's concern that, the Russians would have a bomb and so on. So we wouldn't alone have the capacity. In some respects, I must say, when I finally was able to look at the actual records, what was, in a way, more ghastly than Hiroshima, or even Nagasaki, which was pretty much a test, just to see if a different kind of bomb would work. Even more ghastly than that, in many ways, in my mind, though less destructive, was what the Air Force history calls the finale on, I guess it was maybe August 14th. Japan had surrendered, but the surrender had not yet officially been received. And this is from memory, I may not have it exact, but it was something like this. The main Air Force General, General Arnold, wanted to have a 1,000-plane raid to finish off the war, and which was apparently a considerable logistic feat. We got them together, 1,000 planes, flew, bombed. War was over. And among the victims, one of them was one of the towns hit was Osaka. One of the victims there was a young boy who later grew up to be a well-known Japanese novelist, Makoto Oda. And years later, he wrote about it. He said that along with the bombs, there were leaflets coming down saying Japan has surrendered. That ungraspable savagery of the reaction, which you could see. I mean, even as a child, I could see it. So as a child growing up, the Germans, who were by far the worst, were treated with a certain respect. So there was, prisoner of war camp happened to be right next to my high school, and there were disputes among the students. Some of the students wanted to mock the prisoners and throw things at them. A couple of us, I was one, tried to keep them from doing that. These are just people who are captured. You have to treat them decently. But they were never treated, they were always treated as if they were human beings. Japanese, on the other hand, were treated as vermin who had to be crushed and destroyed. If you look back at wartime propaganda, and I remember it from seeing it the first time, it was the most racist, grotesque propaganda I'd ever seen. So when we finally smashed these bugs and wiped them out, why not have a grand finale just to show them who's boss?